everyone, this is Fantasy Ask and welcome back to Royal Clan in ClanGen, the Warrior Cats clan generator game. When we left off in the previous episode, we saw some jealousy in the King's court. Flailstorm noticed that Quillrunner was giving his match, Magpie, a little bit too much attention, and he wanted to make her jealous, so he started spending a little bit of time with Scorchmoss, the cat that has been devotedly in love with him for half her life, I think. And Flailstorm started getting a little bit too cozy with her and a bit too flirty, and then he found her eyes really beautiful, and now there's like a bit of a mess going on with all of this. I think he's using Scorchmoss. I'm a little bit scared he's leading her astray and stirring up feelings that she has kind of fought to put to rest. But all of that we are putting aside this time around, because it is going to be the final moon for our apprentices as apprentices. And I can't wait to see what the last patrols look like and who's going to be in the running to be the next prince. It's been a little bit, oh my goodness, there's like birds on my windowsill who are very, very vocal this morning. Anyways, like I was saying, with Foxpaw, he was kind of ahead of the game for I feel like most of the apprenticeship, but the last moon, Ghostpaw kind of turned things around with the help of his mental flare freckle, and I'm wondering whether or not he's going to keep that going and actually, surprisingly, become the next prince. We'll have to see, but let's go straight to the leader's den and roll the dice to see how King Fernstar is going to handle the next gathering. Okay, so I got a 5 on the D10, which is Ice Clan, and a 1 on the D8, which is Offend. They'll probably like that, to be honest. And let's skip a moon. Oh my goodness. Okay. King Fernstar barges in front of Ice Clan's leader at the gathering, cutting them off and insisting that Fernstar be the first to deliver news. Ice Clan relations have worsened. But the exciting thing, Magpie has announced that she is expecting kids. She wouldn't dare settle down and let others work while she rested. Things will continue as usual for now. Guys, do you think Flailstorm's whole fiasco in the last episode to make her jealous worked and brought her attention back to him? Because, I mean, she was taking a little bit of time to get to know him, but as soon as he pulled that, next thing you know, she's pregnant with kids. So, I don't know. Did that work? Maybe it worked. Maybe it worked. Maybe he had a reason for doing so. He was on to something. Okay, Inkfeather has recovered from white cough, thank goodness. Frostfade trips over an unseen rabbit hole, spraining his paw. I don't know if it's going to be bad enough for him to not make it to his apprentice's final patrol. Frostfade! Ghostpaw received a present! Sparrow feathers from Magpie and decided to keep it with him on his pelt. I love it when they get adornments for their pelt. I love it. Feathers! That's so cute. It's kind of hard to see the sparrow feathers because actually his coloring, even though it is very similar to bear pelt is more like black and grayish, whereas Ghostpaw, he's like this coffee brown sort of color. And it's like the similar color to the sparrow feathers, so it's like blending in with them, but I can make out just a little bit on his tail. Maybe, hopefully when he's older, it's a bit more evident on his coat. But, oh no, Frostfade! So Frostfade unfortunately won't be able to make it to Foxpaw's final patrol, so we'll have to see what arrangements he makes for Foxpaw. But let's check out the Medicine Cat Den. Inkfeather was given Tansy as treatment for white cough and she recovered from that. Icicle Speck could not find any herbs this moon. Let's go check out relationships. King Fernstar sighs loudly every time Quillrunner does anything on patrol. King Fernstar lets Icicle Speck vent to him about the difficulties as a leader. Scorchmoss doesn't notice Magpie twitching her whiskers at her. I wonder if that was Magpie being a little bit aware that Scorchmoss was next to her, given what Flailstorm pulled in the last episode. Bearpelt does something that makes Scorchmoss's day a little happier. The moon casts a shadow on Scorchmoss's face in a way that makes Icicle Speck uneasy. Icicle Speck comforts Foxpaw after a terrible nightmare. Flailstorm and Foxpaw splash each other in a puddle, but it doesn't look playful. Flailstorm is disappointed in Icicle Speck's lack of initiative. Shining Stripe tried on an accessory that Scorchmoss threw away, but realized Scorchmoss looked a lot better in it. Shining Stripe and Ghostpaw apologize to each other at the same time. Ghostpaw guides Flarefreckle to someone she's looking for. So some mentor and apprentice bonding over here. Flarefreckle thinks very often about Ghostpaw. Now, you know what, guys? I wouldn't be surprised with the amount of care and attention that Flarefreckle gives to Ghostpaw if she was able to haul him over as the best of his batch and right to the top, make him the prince. I wouldn't be surprised. She's a slow but steady sort of mentor, I think. Flailstorm gives advice to Bearpelt. It's not good advice, but Bearpelt appreciates the effort. Bearpelt explains what a joke means to Foxpaw. Magpie has a lot of fun with Icicle Speck. Magpie gets a bunch of cats up for morning stretches, they don't like it. Inkfeather learns about Ghostpaw's struggles and is surprised how well he carries himself, so some mother-son bonding with her favorite son. Inkfeather backs up one of Ghostpaw's claims during one of Ghostpaw's arguments, some more bonding between these two, which I love. Quillrunner and Foxpaw chat idly about the latest meeting. If you were to ask Quillrunner, no other cat is anywhere near as fun or interesting as Icicle Speck. Oh my goodness, they're spending more and more time together and I'm so worried. Icicle Speck. What are you doing? What are you doing? He started things with Quillrunner and then he fell in love with Shining Stripe. But he's continuing to be kind of flirty with Quillrunner. Break it off with Shining Stripe if you don't want to be in that. If you don't want to pursue that. I feel like Icicle Speck, I think Vornell beforehand made a good point about Icicle Speck growing up being surrounded by a lot of cats that wanted to befriend him or loved him, and so he's kind of used to being a bit flirtatious or charismatic and finding love and affection wherever he goes. But still, Icicle Speck, this is not right. Frostfade and Ghostpaw talk about what they see in the clouds. Foxpaw wishes he could get his pelt to shine like Flailstorm's, and Ghostpaw always assumes the worst of Flarefreckle. What? That's possible. This whole time, Flarefreckle, from what we've seen, Flarefreckle has been very supportive of Ghostpaw. But maybe Ghostpaw doesn't entirely feel the same. Maybe he just always assumes that... I could see that dynamic, actually. If Flarefreckle was trying her best to be supportive of Ghostpaw and make a connection with him throughout his entire apprenticeship, which we've seen, right, his apprenticehood, but maybe Ghostpaw on the opposite end has always gone through training feeling like Flarefreckle is trying to make do with him because maybe he knows that Flarefreckle wanted to train his sister and then later on his brother as well. Maybe his siblings told that to him when they were younger, and especially Houndpaw when she was a kid, maybe she wouldn't stop talking about how Flarefreckle would be her mentor. So I could see how, even though maybe it hasn't been apparent to us, but Ghostpaw maybe grew up feeling like Flarefreckle is just trying to make do with him. Whereas from Flarefreckle's point of view, which we've been seeing largely in the events, she's always been trying to bond with him and make a connection with him and be true to him for his sake, not for anyone else's. But these kind of dynamics, that's what makes everything so exciting, right? When we have multiple points of view and not all of them align at times. Makes for interesting relationships. But okay, that's all we have for events. So let me cut the recording here and we'll continue with the cat list. Okay, let's continue with the cat list. So first up, we have loyalties, of course, and there has actually been some changes. So Magpie and Quillrunner, who recently became loyalists to King Fernstar, are no longer. They have become anti-loyalists. And for Magpie, when she came in, she did have a good rapport with the king, and she kind of saw him as a good leader that takes on her advice and suggestions and all of that, which is fine. But I think over the past moon or so, or the past couple of moons, she has been getting, obviously, a lot of help from the king's consort, Inkfeather, who is the matchmaker, for her own match with Flailstorm, and so she's been spending a lot of time with Inkfeather. And I think in doing so, Magpie, as a cat who's very similar to Inkfeather, they're both loyal cats, they're both she-cats who were in Servant Clan and elevated to nobility, came in for a specific purpose. I think that Magpie started seeing the way King Fernstar treats Inkfeather and how devoted Inkfeather is to him, but it's not returned. And I think that's left a bit of a sour taste in her mouth. Now that she's pregnant with kittens, I think she's a little bit worried about the influence that King Fernstar is going to have on her match, Flailstorm, and the way Flailstorm's going to treat her, especially with the way Flailstorm's been acting recently, like flirting around with Scorchmoss and stuff. So I think for that reason, Magpie has stopped becoming a loyalist. And with Quillrunner. Now, Quillrunner, if we look at his interactions with King Fernstar, I think King Fernstar was like rolling his eyes every time Quillrunner was doing something in patrols and stuff. I feel like Quillrunner, obviously we know he became a loyalist as a way to apologize to the king for his daughter's death, but I think maybe that guilt has gone now, and Quillrunner definitely maybe feels a bit like sometimes he's groveling and King Fernstar is being a bit dismissive of him. So he's decided to kind of stop that. Like he's paid his dues in a sense. He's apologized, even though a lot of what happened was out of his control, but he's apologized. And I don't feel like he probably wants to continue being loyal to King Fernstar if Fernstar acts the way he's acting right now. So that's what we have for loyalties. Now let's go and see what everyone's doing in terms of, not the date, but let's check out their relationship panels. Now there were, I think, 2 cats that I noticed things with. Fernstar, this is his page 1, page 2. Flailstorm, we have page 1, page 2. Icicle Speck, page 1, page 2. Inkfeather is where I noticed a change. Not over here, but over here. She has started to notice Magpie. She's got 1 and a smidge of romance bars with Magpie. Now, I think this goes into what we were talking about with loyalties. Inkfeather obviously has been spending a lot of time with Magpie, trying to match her up with Flailstorm, and I think she sees a lot of herself in Magpie. And because Inkfeather is not getting any reciprocation from the king, and she's not getting any sort of warmth from the king, I think maybe a part of her is starting to look for that elsewhere. And like I said, Magpie is a lot like her. And Inkfeather, it's like she needs someone to be loyal to, and if the king is not treating her loyalty well or accepting her loyalty, then she's finding another cat, and that other cat is Magpie, someone who she feels a lot of camaraderie with. So I think that's what's happening over here. I swear, Magpie, our pretty blue-eyed noble, she's turning a lot of heads at this point. A lot of heads. Bearpelt, we've got his page 1, his page 2. Shining Stripe, page 1, page 2. Flare-Freckle, her page 1, page 2. Magpie's page 1 and page 2. Obviously with Magpie, there's nothing, aside from Quillrunner, she doesn't even have anything for Inkfeather, so Inkfeather's been paying attention to her because she's been helping him mediate. And Magpie, yes, her opinion of the king is being influenced by Inkfeather as well, but she and Inkfeather, outside of matchmaking, don't really have a lot of interaction, so she's not even in here in her relationship panels. Frostfade, her page 1, his page 1, page 2. Quillrunner was the other cat I noticed a change with. He had a romance gain with Icicle Speck. Obviously, because he and Icicle Speck have been, whenever they spend time together, it's like Quillrunner's in another world completely. And in this moon, I think we saw him say that there's no other cat that's more fun than Icicle Speck. So I'm a little bit worried at this rate that Cool Runner is going to fall in love with Icicle Speck. Like, what's going to happen then? What's going to happen then? Because Icicle Speck is with Shining Stripe, and Icicle Speck is in love with Shining Stripe. And I feel like this is very unfair as well. Icicle Speck is being flirty with Cool Runner, right? Cool Runner is continuing to like him more and more and more, but Icicle Speck is not having the same progression of feelings. To him, it's just a little bit of a flirtationship maybe, but there's no genuineness on Icicle Speck's side, I feel. And whatever genuineness he has with Shining Stripe, he found that too late. So that kind of concerns me, guys. And then Ghost Paw, his page 1, page 2, Fox Paw's page 1, page 2, and Scorch Moss's page 1, page 2. So that's all we have for the relationship panels in terms of things that stood out to me. Let's go ahead and see what everyone's doing for the day. King Fernstar saw a two-legged kid playing with a kitty pet. Flailstorm cleans the clearing of fallen leaves. Icicle Speck ignores the rumbling in his stomach in favor of treating cats. Yeah, the one time he's responsible is with his actual duty as the royal physician. Inkfeather is wondering what the inside of a two-legged den looks like. Bearpill saw a two-legged kid playing with a dog. Shining Stripe tries to set a good example for younger cats. Flare Freckle helps out around camp in between her duties. Magpie found a wonderful napping spot outside camp. Frostfade is not looking forward to the sparse hunting and leaf bear. Cool Runner is crushing leaves under his paws, so he's helping Icicle Speck out at the medicine cat den. Cool Runner. Not good. Ghost Paw is feeling lazy. Fox Paw thought he saw a cat, but turns out it's a two-legged object that just looks like one. And Scorch Moss leaps into a pile of fallen leaves. Okay. Now, I think we should probably take a look at experience. I feel like there was something else on my mind, but I can't remember that at this point. I had something, but I cannot. Oh yeah, I was going to say, I wanted to check Flailstorm and Magpie's relationship at the matchmaker, even though we won't have a matchmaking session, just to see where they're at. From the looks of it, nothing has changed in their relationship. So I wonder if it's not that the jealousy worked, it's that maybe Magpie, this whole time, when she came in, things were progressing nicely, in the matchmaking sessions, and she was genuinely trying to get to know Flailstorm, and only Flailstorm, but I think that after Flailstorm, it's not her fault Cool Runner was giving her attention, right? But after the way Flailstorm reacted, maybe Magpie had a jolt of realization that if something happens and Flailstorm for some reason breaks it off with her, then she's gonna be kicked out of the grotto, or she's gonna revert back to being a servant in Servant Clan. Her status is gonna be taken away from her, nobility, right? And so, in her stress over that, she's scrambling to get some sort of stability, she very quickly decided to have kids with Flailstorm, because the feelings haven't changed over here. So I'm wondering whether her decision to have kids was not because she wanted to, was not her getting close to Flailstorm so that they can continue their relationship. I think this was a move by Magpie to secure her position in the clan. If she had a romance gain for Flailstorm, then I would say that, maybe she didn't like the fact that he had wandering eyes, and maybe she wanted to bring him back to her. But I don't think that's the case. I think Flailstorm's behavior has outlined for Magpie that she is in a more precarious situation than she initially thought, and she should very quickly secure herself in the clan before anything else happens, and I think that's what made the move. And it actually makes sense then that Inkfeather recognizing that, because that's exactly how Inkfeather started out. The love that she has for King Fernstar came a lot later. Initially, that wasn't even a concern of hers. I don't even think they were friends. Within a moon, she got pregnant to secure her position in the clan. And I think when she saw Magpie doing the same thing, suddenly her heart like ached for Magpie. Okay, that's interesting. That is very interesting. Okay, let's see the rankings for the apprentices, which is going to, I think, largely decide, unless they're tied, who becomes the next prince. And Ghostpaw is ahead. He's got 53 experience and Foxpaw has 45. Oh my goodness. So, I mean, I don't think any patrol is going to give Foxpaw enough to catch up to Ghostpaw. We'll check again just to make sure, but my goodness, Flare Freckle, the more experienced mentor, definitely won out in the end. And I kind of love the idea of Ghostpaw becoming the next prince, because both his siblings, they had like these interesting signs. They had like a bond with Flare Freckle. They were supposed to be meant for great things under her guidance and such. But nobody really took Ghostpaw into consideration. And yet, he was the one that got Flare Freckle, even if it was because of his father's politicking. And at the end of the day, Flare Freckle, you know, making a connection with him and caring for him and his well-being, she made sure that he would rise above the others. So, I don't know, there's something really heartwarming about that. But okay, let me cut the recording here and we'll continue with patrols. Okay, time for us to continue with patrols. We currently have 87.6 prey and we need 33.5. Let's send out our Royal Physician first off. Icicle Speck, let's see what you get up to. Icicle Speck sniffs the clean, fresh morning air, wondering if he can smell juniper berries on the breeze. Proceed. Icicle Speck seems to have forgotten where to find a juniper tree, much to his own embarrassment. Okay, yeah, he's, I think, way too distracted by his personal life right now. Although he is quite responsible, so it could just be that maybe he... You know what, though? I feel like in the camp he's responsible, like in the grotto, but I feel like when he goes out patrolling and he's supposed to be looking for herbs, at least right now, like he can't stop thinking about the fun that he and Cool Runner have with each other, and maybe that's why he's getting distracted. But okay, we are going to have the final patrols for our apprentices. We're going to have a patrol of 6 and a patrol of 3, so let's see how their mentors decide for them. Also, Foxpaw's mentor, because of the sprain, is not here with him, so I'm curious to see what sort of arrangement Frostfade has made for Foxpaw. Oh. Okay. So I guess both mentors have decided that their apprentices need to have a little bit more exposure than usual. So they're going to be sending the 2 apprentices with Magpie to see what they get up to. Oh, that's kind of dangerous, but I suppose I can see this is supposed to be the real final test for them, right, before they become warriors. So we have Quill Runner, Flillstorm, King Fernstar, Shining Stripe, Bearpelt, and Flare Freckle, who are going to be on a patrol together. So let's send them out. Oh, okay, okay. The patrol stumbles across a large dog wandering through the middle of the clan's territory. I wonder if King Fernstar, who's normally a bit, like overly anxious of sending Foxpaw in smaller patrols, I wonder if, for the first time, he would be like very thankful that Flare Freckle made, or you know, not just Flare Freckle, but that Frostfade made the decision he did, because he probably doesn't want his son to be anywhere near a large dog. Proceed. Shining Stripe selflessly throws himself into the fight, and every time the dog tries to grab at his clanmates, he's there with claws, fur puffed out to twice his normal size. With Shining Stripe defending them, the patrol drives the dog off, yowling triumphantly. Oh my goodness, Shining Stripe, what a hero! What a hero. You know what, I feel like Shining Stripe has been fading a little bit into the background because of this whole thing with Icicle Speck and, you know, Cool Runner in a way. But I'm actually glad to see that aside from now that his emotions for Icicle Speck have cooled down a lot, he's still thriving. He's still being his normal self. In fact, he's being better than normal. He's being heroic. And I love that for him. And that these cats, especially who are on patrol with him, are going to recognize that. Because I feel like Shining Stripe's brother has always been the more bold one, the one who's he's a prince. Shining Stripe isn't a prince. His brother's the prince. and his apprentice is the prince. You know, everyone around him is more special than him in a way. And yet, the one who stepped up was actually Shining Stripe, so I love that. And against a big dog, like, come on. Okay, and now we have Foxpaw, Ghostpaw, and Magpie, so let's see what they get up to. Eyes glowing with the last rays of the sunset, the small hunting party heads out into the gathering dusk. Proceed. Sometimes hunts just go bad. It's no one's fault, but today is one of those times. The cats console one another as they walk home. So Magpie tried to take them out on a hunt, but nothing much happened over here. I think that's okay, at least they tried, and maybe this was a good kind of relaxation time for the apprentices, like a good cool down from all of the training they've been doing. You know, a sort of final test that maybe wasn't what they thought it would be. I mean, yes, they didn't catch anything, and perhaps they thought the test was a hunting test, but maybe what was really being tested was how they deal with disappointment when things don't go their way, right? Which I think is important as warriors, because there are going to be a lot of times when they're adults when things out of their control happen, like it did with Quill Runner and the ambush. Even though Quill Runner is a prince, you know, he lost an apprentice. It was out of his control. Even though he tried, it was something that he couldn't have changed. So the way he dealt with the disappointment of that, like in himself, and the guilt, that's a big thing that comes into play later. But I think it starts off with small things like this, not just accomplishing everything you set out to do, but how you deal with disappointment when you don't manage to. So okay, that's all we managed to get done today, guys. But have a look at our little apprentices. I'm just gonna check real quick, even though I know it's probably not gonna be too different. But yeah, Ghostpaw has 56, Foxpaw has 48. So Ghostpaw is going to be our Ghost Prince in the next episode, which is quite exciting. But okay, guys, with that said and done, I am gonna leave off here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.